Okay, let's take a look at instruction here a little bit. What's the plan for selecting and developing curriculum? We've kind of covered that above. And then the review of the curriculum goes back to that discussion we had a little bit ago where there's a system where the committee comes together once a quarter, made up of principal, data, PD folks, all the leaderships of the school. We're taking a look at all of our data points, our testing, our internal testing, our Lodi pop-in teacher observations, any kind of end of year, anything we've got from a data point of view. And then we're making a report to the board and or fixing, changing, adjusting any of these four things. So if that comes up, there's always a system behind the scenes, meets quarterly, reports to the principal. So that's important that we keep kind of beating that drum. Let's see, what types of remediation do you expect the students to need? Okay, so depending on the school and the neighborhood and what we're kind of walking into, remediation looks like in the first year we slow down. We just take a lot more time kind of working on the basics, which starts with things like discipline and our culture and our model. Like any good teacher, we want to control the classroom and make sure that we have folks ready to learn. And then it's just slowing down. So say there's 120 units of Saxon math in a year. We may only do 90 the first year because we're spending a lot of time. And Saxon we like a lot because it spirals, introduces a new standard or theme, and then keeps bringing it back up and repeating it so that those kids get mastery of it and see it in different applications. In writing and novels, it may be slowing down and doing a lot more writing, a lot more grammar, a lot more vocabulary, a lot more functional stuff, depending on what's coming in the door. That's number one. Number two, we are doing the NWA map test. We're doing DIBELS in the lower grades, so we're looking for any kind of reading issues because K3 is so critical for that early stage reading. And then it's a whole series of things from differentiated in the classroom with the teacher. And the actual program we work with in the K3 is called Bookworms, and it's designed to have a total of an hour and a half, I think, of English instruction, divided into three subcategories. And that one of those three is one-on-one time with teacher and small group for kids that are there. So that gives them that ability grouping in the classroom. Final step, or next step, is we do pullouts, and that's a combination of our teacher aides and or intervention team that's coming in using digital resources and helping the kids with early coding and phonetic awareness and all the different components of early reading. So we're real intense K3, and then the data tells us where our issues are. We're not a school that agrees with ability grouping, although we've flirted with it in middle schools, especially in math, in some of the higher end neighborhoods to kind of give those students that are running in math a little higher chance to go up. So not opposed to it, but something to discuss. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. What is the plan for working with students who are not meeting expectations? Just kind of mentioned that. Data, in-classroom differentiation, tons of resources there, intervention team, parent volunteers, all kinds of stuff. Who provides tutoring and enrichment? When will tutoring happen? So part of our teacher contract is there's 2 hours a week of scholar hours, we call it. And when we first started, it was just classroom or just time in an office, but we got real intentioned over time looking at that data and saying, okay, you scholar who are having problems with math or English or some of those core classes, I need to have you come in to my scholar hours, and we're going to do some intensive tutoring. If it's more global, we've actually put some budget aside to hire tutors from the local university to come in and have after-school tutor time. So it's an all hands on deck when that starts happening. I mean, there's some big gaps and some big issues. Most of it we like to handle in the classroom because that makes sense. And it has a lot to do with pacing and identifying the holes and gaps as they come in the door and as we go through our map testing and our data to say where we have issues and then coming around that with a strategic point of view. All right, next one. How will you make ability grouping decisions? How often and how will the decisions be reevaluated? So again, explained it over and over here, but we're trying to do most differentiated in the classroom. Most difficult thing for teachers to really gather and get. So we really work on PD and training to make sure that the differentiation is happening in the classroom because that's all the data shows that's where the most effectiveness is. So that would be the main focus that we're going to look at. So if you just want to keep answering that. Let me get to teacher training here so you can kind of see what that looks like. So the PD is a big deal for us, as we know. We're going to talk about that, I'm sure, in another question. But we really spend a lot of time in differentiated instruction, must-dos, using data in the classroom, intervention protocols that work, brain research and learning. Again, it's very much a part of our PD schedule. All these are virtual classes that are about 15, 20 minutes long, little micro credits. So if you see a teacher that's really struggling, you can assign this little 10-minute class and they can watch a quality teacher doing something on video or doing what we're looking for and then try to implement it in the classroom. So lots of, we'll talk about PD here in a minute, but we're pretty intense on professional development. Okay. How do you propose goals align with the expected levels of school performance set out by the authorizers? Again, same basic question, data, K-3 early reading, slow down, pullouts, parent volunteers. I mean, we're just answering the same kind of thing in all those ones. So hopefully that gives you just a general. But realize behind the scenes, inside of Schoology, it just is wide and deep and far of everything involved. In fact, I think we have an intervention. So these are all curriculum. Let's run into operations. Operations lunch program. That'd actually be PD. And let's look for differentiation or intervention in a classical school. What's that look like? And this is kind of the model we have in the background, but it can be tailored to your particular course and class. What happens in intervention, what the how that matrix looks, and I'll show you that in a second here. Digital curriculum resources that we provide and use, how testing and data works, when we're starting to look for key events for interventions, like first part of the year, second part of the year is where those kids should be, forms, how campuses do it different ways, just on and on. Small group reading. I mean, you can see there's a ton behind it. This little chart gives you a good idea with reading in particular, and what we're looking for is cut scores. Once you're at the 20-30% below reading level, then we're doing a tier 1, 2, 3 interventions, and what resources and tools are available. When does ESS get involved for special populations? I mean, try to be pretty organized and pretty straight on how this all works. So, and then I've got all kinds of tools that have been built over the years that you can kind of look at and see. But it's all hands on deck when we start having intervention issues.